One summer's morning, a little tailor was sitting at his table, sewing a pair of trousers with all his might, because he was looking forward hungrily to the bread and jam he was going to have for his lunch. But meanwhile, the smell of the jam rose to where the flies were sitting in great numbers. And as soon as they smelt the jam, come on, guys, let's go and get it. They swarmed down in a cloud. Oi! Who invited you? Get away, said the little tailor. But the flies didn't understand a word of English and stayed right where they were, up to their eyeballs in jam, frolicking about and playing catch with a blackcurrant. Well, the little tailor wasn't going to have anyone playing around in his lunch, so he pulled out a thick piece of cloth from under his work table and whacked it down on the flies. When he lifted the cloth, he saw no fewer than 7 dead flies with their tongues hanging out and their legs sticking up in the air. Oh. Well, the little tailor couldn't help admiring his own bravery. Pretty tough, eh? He said to the rest of the flies, who fled back to the rafters. Yeah, and I'd stay up there if I were you. And then, proudly, he made himself a belt and embroidered on it in large letters, 7 at 1 blow. Hey, the whole world ought to know about this, he said, and his heart wagged with joy like a lamb's tail as he put on his hat to go out into the world. And he hadn't gone far when he saw an old chicken stuck in a bush. And carefully, he untangled it and he put it in his pocket, thinking, hey, this chicken might be useful on my travels. Now, the road he took led him up a mountain, and when he reached the very highest point of it, he suddenly saw a huge, disgusting giant who sat picking his toenails and taking a look at the world. The little tailor went bravely up to him and said, hey, good day, comrade. I see you're picking your toenails and taking a bit of a look at the world. Hey, I'm just on my way out into the world myself, actually. Would you like to come with me?
Why don't you go away, ragamuffin, miserable creature, worm,
said the giant, and he flicked a piece of toenail in the tailor's face. Oh, really? Answered the little tailor as he unbuttoned his coat and showed the giant his belt. There! Before you call me names again, you better read what kind of guy I am. 7 at 1 blow, so there! The giant read 7 at 1 blow, and he thought it was 7 men that the tailor had killed. So the giant began to think, perhaps I should have been a bit more polite to him. Nevertheless, he wished to test the tailor first to make sure he was really worth being polite to. The giant picked up an enormous rock, well, a hill basically, and he threw it so far that it landed on a poor donkey's head 84 miles away. Clonk.
Serves you right for being a donkey. Now, if you're so strong,
The giant said.
let's see you do the same.
Yeah, well, not a bad throw. But, I think I'll throw something that will never come back at all. So the tailor put his hand in his pocket, took out the chicken, and threw it in the air. Well, the chicken was delighted to be free. Great! And he flew off completely out of sight. Yeah, well, how'd you like that then, Titch? Said the little tailor to the giant.
Yeah, well, you certainly can throw, said the giant. But now, let's see if you're brave enough to come and spend the night with me and my brother Osric in our cave. You think I'm a giant? You should see him.
Well, the little tailor was far from happy when he saw Osric sitting by an enormous forest fire and eating handfuls of roast sheep, tossing them up in the air as if they were peanuts. When Osric spoke, he had a voice that sounded like pigs being trodden on.
Hello, Brother Og,
He said, for this was the first giant's name.
Oh, no! What have you brought home with you this time? Put it in the spare room and get it out of my sight. You know I can't stand to look at anything small and horrible.
spare room was the size of a cathedral, and a big cathedral at that. And the bed was so high that it would have been like sleeping on the edge of a cliff. So the tailor thought, oh dear, I might fall out of that. I mean, it's a huge bed. I might fall off and come to great harm. Well, I think I'll just curl up on the floor, you know, under a rug and sleep there. And so he did. But on the stroke of midnight, Og and Osric tiptoed in. Sorry. They thought the little tailor was asleep in the bed. So they smashed it for pieces with a dead dinosaur, which they kept for such occasions. And they thought they'd finished off the tailor for good. And they went off sniggering. Well, yeah, that's enough sniggering. Let's go to bed. But in the morning, when the giants saw the tailor cheerfully walking about, you know, eating his breakfast and things, they were terrified. And they ran away into the forest shouting, oh no, it's a ghost, it's a ghost, there's a ghost, there's a ghost, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, where's my mummy, where's my mummy? Well, she's in France, whereabouts, all of it, oh. The little tailor, however, just went on his way. And after a while, he settled down for a nap in the courtyard of a royal palace. Well, the people at the palace were amazed when they read the words on his belt. 7 at one blow, look, what? Look, 7 at one blow. 7 at one blow. Oh, they said, oh, what a great warrior he must be. Oh, the king ought to have him in his army, yeah. So before he knew it, the little tailor was made admiral-in-chief of the whole army. However, the other soldiers in the army didn't like the little tailor at all and whispered to each other, yeah, where's all this going to end? I'll tell you where. If we annoy him in some tiny way, he'll lose his temper and knock down 7 of us in one blow. It's too frightening to have to work with a man like that, isn't it? Yeah, it's much too frightening. Stuff that for a game of soldiers. So they went to the king and said, Your Majesty, we're not happy, are we? No, we're not what you'd call happy at all. I mean, you know, we've always been a peaceful sort of army, just marching up and down in nice blue uniforms with shiny buttons and feathers in our hats. We don't want someone who kills people in our army. Well, the king didn't want his army to be unhappy, so he hit upon a plan. He sent for the little tailor and said, I hate to trouble you, but I wondered if you could do me a little favour. You know, you being such a great warrior. You see, in the forest, there are 2 incredibly dangerous giants. Would you be an angel and pop off and kill them for me? If you do, I will give you my daughter and half my kingdom. Okay. Ta-ta. Oh, 2 giants. No problem. And off the little tailor bounded into the forest. And before long, he came upon the 2 giants asleep under a tree. I thought so. It's those 2 Burks, Og and Osric, he thought. He climbed the tree just above the giants and sat on a branch. Then he dropped a few stones on Osric's chest. Osric woke up, pushed his brother crossly and said in his trodden pig's voice, "Here, stop knocking into me!" And he sprang up like a madman and pushed Og against the tree until it shook. But Og pushed him back, and they got into such a rage that they tore up trees and hit each other with them until the trees turned into splinters. Then they tore up more trees and hit each other with them until they both fell down dead on the ground. Are you sure the giants are dead? Asked the king. Oh, yeah, indeed, yeah, said the tailor. Yeah, I killed both of them. It was pretty hard work. You know, they had to pull up trees to fight me off. But, you know, it did them no good against a guy like me who can kill... Yes, I know. 7 at one blow, I know, said the king. But although he didn't like it, the king had to keep his promise and give the giant killer his daughter and half his kingdom. Well, the tailor was very pleased with himself. Just goes to show, doesn't it, what an ordinary little guy can do when he just sets out in the world. But as the years went by, the tailor grew tired of being so rich and having no work to do, you know. Boring, he thought. So he got out his needle and thread and began to sew again. And the king said to himself, you know, he's not such a frightening little fellow after all, no. He's not harmed a hair of anyone's head, and he's made me quite the best pair of trousers I've ever had. And in the end, even the army made friends with him when he made them the most splendid uniforms they'd ever worn. Well, They said, you know, I mean, we didn't care for him very much, you know, when he was rushing about killing giants, you know, and like 7 at one blow and all that nonsense. But, you know, now we think he's going to fit in very nicely, don't we? Yeah, yeah. What an extraordinary thing that such a great warrior can sew such fine clothes. Anyone might think he was a tailor.